Welcome to Bent TV. I'm Andy McNamara. Tonight I'm speaking to Brenda Appleton. And Brenda, I want to ask you a bit about your life, how you have journeyed to become a trans elder in Melbourne's community. Welcome to Bent TV.
Thanks, Andy. Delighted to be here.
Good. Let's start at the very beginning. Can you tell me, I don't want to jump to assumptions, but I get the feeling you're a little bit older than Taylor Swift or Beyonce or anything. Can you tell me about the world you were born into?
I was born into a very macho world. Mm-hmm. My father was ex-boxer, ex-football player, ex-army. And I was born in 1950. So growing up through the 50s and 60s, we didn't have the internet, didn't have access to computers. So from a young age, probably about 6 or 7, I knew that I was struggling, but I didn't have anywhere to discuss that.
No, or even the words to sort of...
Well, certainly not the vocabulary to explain it.
Comprehend it, yeah.
But when I was wanting to talk about it at home, it was shut down, and so it made it rather difficult. And in my case, was made more difficult because I went to a boys' school, and I was very pleased. I left school early, and I was very pleased when my time at school was over. I suffered a fair bit of bullying and harassment, and it wasn't a particularly pleasant time of my life.
Did you, what were your first experiences of other trans people in the world, either personal or famous, or...?
Came much later in life. So I guess like a lot of trans people, I grew up feeling that living as a male wasn't right for me, but I had nowhere to take it. And I wasn't able to explore it. I wasn't aware of trans at that stage. And like a lot of trans, I then thought, well, if I study hard, work hard, get married, have kids, then those concerns and doubts would go away. Right. And I'd just get on with life.
Like gay people probably of a generation earlier. Yep.
And for a period of time I could do that, but then increasingly it was much more difficult. So in response to your earlier question, when did I become aware of other trans, I guess, I read about Jan Morris, and I eventually did a lot of reading of biographies of trans people, and started to understand just what was possible. And
how old were you when you were, at this point, you were reading about other trans people?
I guess I was in my 30s by then. And my life went up and down a little bit in terms of trying to conceal the secret that I had. It meant that I never lost control. I ensured that I didn't have a lot of close friends. I was fortunate that I met my soulmate early on and we got married. It wasn't discussed with Janice at that stage.
Your wife, yes.
My wife. But the problems that I had were always there and evident to me.
Right. Now, this is getting personal, I guess. How did you have that discussion with your wife? Like, I'm sure the vocab probably still wasn't there at that point, given where the world was. It must have been a very challenging...
So it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I then discussed it with Janice. I started having counselling, and I started going to Seahorse, and
which is a transgender support group in Melbourne, yes?
Yes, and I started to, I guess, explore what it would mean for me to truly be myself, rather than what I was feeling, which was acting the role that was expected of me.
Wow.
And as for so many, it's a scary decision because you don't know at that point whether you'll lose your job, lose your family, lose contact with your children. We have 2 children. And for so many trans people, they do lose their job and they lose contact with their family.
Wow.
So they face, at a time when they desperately need support, they face it alone, and that makes it very scary.
And obviously, like many things, it's a secret that once it's out, you can't bring it back in. So it's incredibly scary, I'm sure.
It is. And for a trans woman, so someone like myself, assigned male at birth, to transition, I was working in the corporate world. I had 35 years working in the corporate world, mostly multinationals. And to transition at work, I was a director of the company, so reasonably high profile.
Wow.
And yeah, you very much feel you're being inspected and observed all the time. You really are on display.
How did your wife cope with your true nature, I guess?
My true self. Not easily. It wasn't something that she was aware of before it was first raised. And eventually Janice needed to have counselling for herself. And I've got 2 adult children now in their mid-late 30s, and they needed counselling as well. We don't pretend that it's an easy journey, and it's a journey for everyone, not just the person who is transitioning. Although I don't think of it as a transition, I think of it as an alignment. I was always the same on the inside, and I aligned my exterior, my presentation, to better represent the way I felt on the inside.
Wow. And maybe just to finish up, it's great that you and your wife are still married and still together, so it's great there's a happy end to this journey sometimes.
Yes, no, we celebrated 43 years of marriage last month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And no, it wasn't easy. To start with, it was difficult to celebrate wedding anniversaries after I transitioned. So we created a new day which we called Friendship Day. And we celebrated that each year rather than our wedding anniversary because it was not easy in the early days. And now we're at the fortunate stage where we celebrate both Friendship Day and our wedding anniversary.
Wonderful.
And we have one of the few legal same-sex marriages in Australia, which we're quite proud about.
Good on you. Brenda, thanks so much for chatting to us.
You're welcome.
You're watching Ben TV. I'm Andy McNamara and we're chatting to Brenda Appleton.